Hi, this is Jonathan Lunger from Hologram Chat, and my guest today is Joanie McMahon. Joanie has a doctorate in psychology. She's a master teacher of the law of attraction and internet marketer and all-around great person. Thank you so much for being here, Joanie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just great, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I do too. So today's topic we were going to talk about was, what is your perspective on the big C word, the cancer?
Yeah, it is considered a pretty big word in our culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's on the negative side of things. In our culture, when we hear the word cancer, it tends to put fear in the hearts of people. So I'm really happy to talk about this topic today because it's so huge and so many people either have had an experience with cancer or they know someone that's had an experience with cancer. So it's a really big topic, and I think it really deserves some careful discussion, careful thought. So my experience with cancer really was limited until about 1994, when my husband of many years was diagnosed with cancer. And I really didn't know anything about it before then. But as anyone knows that lives with someone with cancer or has cancer, you learn a lot quickly, because the very word tends to demand quick action to do something about it, because people have this fear of it spreading, of it getting worse, of dying, all the fears that happen. So my real intention today is to really help to calm and soothe people's thoughts on the word cancer and on this whole topic, and really get a handle on what cancer really is. And I've come to believe and know from my husband's experience and from working with many people since that have had cancer, that cancer really is a call from our bodies for freedom. It's a message from us that something has gone astray inside. And that's the extent of it. We make it much bigger in our culture because there's a whole industry that feeds on the fear that gets built when we hear the word cancer. So one of the things that I recommend to people that are diagnosed with cancer is just to not even use the word, because there's something about that word that makes people feel bad, that makes people bring their attention into a negative place. And really, if you think of cancer, I'll just, it's a unnatural mass of distress in the body. Let's say a person has cancer in their stomach, let's say. It's just a lump in the stomach that's calling for attention. That's what it is. And by the time it gets to be a lump, which is when it gets diagnosed, a lot of time has passed, and really that cancerous tumor has been happening for quite a while. I believe that all illness is it's an unnatural state. It's caused by patterns of thinking that are sustained over a long period of time, patterns of negative thinking. So, and these patterns can get set up at a very young age. I'll just give an example. I have a good friend and the founder of a body of work that I now do. Her name is Brandon Bays. And she was diagnosed with a tumor many years ago now in her belly that was the size of a football. And at the time, she was working for Tony Robbins. She was living a lifestyle that most people would consider very healthy. She ate well, she meditated, she exercised, she did all the things that most people would say you need to do to be healthy. So she knew, and then she got diagnosed with this tumor, which completely baffled her. How can this happen when I take such good care of myself? Was her question. And really, that was the question that my husband asked as well, because we both lived very healthy lives in terms of lifestyle, foods we ate, exercise, etc. So what happened with Brandon is she knew enough that doctors wanted to take the tumor out right away. But Brandon knew that if she didn't get to the root source of the tumor, didn't understand what this tumor was about, that taking it out was just a temporary solution, because the illness of some sort would come back in another form. So she got led to a body of work that is called Journey work, that really this tumor had begun when she was a very little girl and there was an act of violence in her family. And her cell receptors shut down because she didn't have a chance to process that memory in a healthy way. It was just shock. The cell memory, the cell closed, and the shock and terror of this event began the creation of a tumor. And what Brandon discovered was a method to help bring this tumor, to bring this memory to light and release the memory. And within 6 weeks, her tumor was gone. Now, with my husband, now that I'm trained in this work called Journey work, and I now understand, my husband actually knew the memories that were creating his dis-ease. I can remember a month before he died, we were trying to come to grips with these memories that he had, because he knew they had something to do with his illness. But we didn't have the skills and we didn't have the knowledge to process it. So cancer is really, it can begin at a very young age, and it can manifest into a full-fledged tumor in the body at a much, it can begin at 3 and you could have the tumor at 30. So it's kind of lying dormant, and then all of a sudden it comes into the body in full force. So if you can, so Brandon literally cleared her tumor once she got access to this memory in 6 weeks. It just left. And so, and many people I know, that has happened as well. So there's two things about cancer. Cancer both can be an old stored memory or a series of old stored memories that are negative, and it can be about the present way we're thinking. So it's very common for someone diagnosed with cancer to have been living in a state of despair or depression for a long period of time. This is an unnatural state for the body, and the body has to find a way to cope with negative emotion because it's not natural. It's not who we really are. We're vibrant, we're healthy, we're happy. That's our natural state. So whenever we're in a sustained state of being for a long period of time that's negative, we're going against our own health, and illness manifests in different ways. For some people it's cancer, for others it's MS, for others it's depression, for others it's feet problem or migraine headaches. It doesn't really matter. What it all means is that we're out of alignment with our true nature. So, but with cancer, there tends to be a more, the scare tends to be worse. And the cancer industry is huge. So once, for example, my husband was diagnosed with cancer, he got swept into the cancer agency in Vancouver, Canada. And it was like a whirlwind. And I really discovered that doctors really don't know what they're doing. They don't understand the nature of illness and why illness is even created. And they try to get rid of illness with methods that have nothing to do with the cause of the illness. So they'll use radiation, they'll use chemotherapy, drugs of all kinds of sorts. And really, these are just poisons that get placed in the body and perhaps create some temporary relief. But, knowing what my husband went through after these treatments, it wasn't really relief. It was a real zapping of your whole energetic field. So doctors tend to not know about energy because they're trained to know about symptoms. So they see a mass that's unnatural in the body. They call it cancer. That's all it is. It's an unnatural mass in the body. And they've created a whole industry around this word cancer that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And there's all kinds of charities that are raising money for this industry. So there's tons of money being fed into this industry that really doesn't have very much success in helping people. That's my experience anyway. And my husband literally went from doctor to many different sources to try to get help for his cancer. And I don't think there was really anybody that said to him, your cancer is about your energy. It's about your thought patterns. It's about past events that are affecting the present. Nobody knew that. Nobody that, that we talked to. And what we know about cancer cannot stay in a healthy, happy feeling body. It just will go away if you're healthy, if you're happy. Because positive emotion is who we really are. It's a healer. But most people don't even realize that they're not in positive emotion. They've lived in this state of a negative state for so long that they think it's natural. It's normal to be frustrated or angry or blaming others or depressed or anxious. All of those states are more common than joy and happiness and those positive feeling states. In this culture, that's true. That more people are in a negative state on a regular basis than happy. And thus we have a culture that's rampant with illness of all kinds. And all of it is a message to us telling us that we are out of alignment with who we really are. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to just go over some things that I would recommend to anybody. And if I had known these things when my husband died or was going through his cancer, I think he may have survived. He may not have transitioned. So, I mean, we are all transitioning, but he went earlier than he really wanted to. So, the first thing I recommend to people is to stop using the word cancer. Don't talk about it and don't use the word. Because the more you talk about it and the more you use the word, the more it activates anxiety in yourself and in others. And what's interesting about the human being right now is that they will spend a lot of time talking about a negative story. Like if you have cancer, honestly, that story gets spread so quickly, hundreds of people know about it that you haven't even told, because people like to tell negative stories still. And that tells us about our state of beingness. Whereas if you have a positive story, people don't tend to chat a lot about positive stories as much. We're learning, we're getting there, But honestly, if anybody could do an experiment, start a positive story, start a negative story, and just see which gets more mileage. And you will by far see that the negative story gets told over and over and over and over and over again, and that happens a lot. So that's the first thing, is I would just, you could just say that you're, I don't even know what you want to say instead of I have cancer. You don't even, but the more you talk about your cancer, the more you talk about your dis-ease, your unhealthiness, the more it spreads. So you want to move yourself into a feeling state of trusting that your body knows exactly what to do to feel better. And to really listen to your body. And here's one of the ways that I recommend that people do that. Most people are so used to doing things that they really don't want to do, but out of obligation or feeling responsible, they do it. Let's say you get invited out for dinner. Most people, if they don't really want to go, they'll often say yes because they feel obliged to. This is really common with family events. You feel like, well, because it's my sister's birthday, I have to be there, right? Even if you don't really want to be there. So what I get people to do is to really start to listen from within. If something feels like it's like a hell yes, I absolutely want to do this, I say, do it. Go ahead and do it. That's your inner guidance saying, absolutely, this is an event that's going to please you. It's going to be fun, Yeah. But if it's sort of, wishy, you don't really, you could go or you don't need to, you don't have to go, don't go. Yeah. And that is a really great exercise to begin to start to feel what makes you happy. You were going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just thinking that a lot of people, when they feel obliged, they want to say no, but they feel they're not allowed to say no. And it's okay to say no if you don't want to do something.
Absolutely. And if you could even turn that around and just say that if there's not a hell yes coming from within, then it's just not something you want to be doing. Now, when you have cancer, you've got a really good excuse. You could even say to people, you know what? Every time somebody asks me to do something, if it's not a hell yes, I'm not going to do it. And you could say, it's not even about you. It's about me and what I need right now. And that's the absolute truth. It really doesn't have anything to do with your sister or your mother or these obligations that you feel you have to go to. It's more about you and what you need to do right now. So having a hell yes coming from within, and that starts to tell you what makes you happy. Because most people have so lost touch with really what makes them happy. All of these obligations and worries have bogged people down so much that they've just lost touch with their joyful, freedom-seeking spirit. So that's one thing. The other thing is I really recommend that people stop listening to the news and stop watching movies that are depressing or fear-based or violent. Anything, and start to take control of what you put into your mind. Television, for the most part, is filled with, well, the news is certainly mostly negative. And the reason it's negative is because that's what people like to watch. And we talked about negative stories, and then they get spread. Right. And we tend to watch movies that terrorize us, that make us feel so afraid. And we call that entertainment. And really, we don't realize it, but it's affecting our health and well-being. So that's another big thing that I always recommend is just, only watch those things that really make you feel good, those movies. you know. And I'm sure there's the odd show on television too that's like that. I don't really watch any television anymore, but to be really mindful of what makes, what shows are good feeling shows. And it's interesting now that I have not been watching the news for such a long time, that whenever I happen to be, say, in a restaurant or something where there's a television and there's news, most of the time it's good news. And I know that that's because that's all that I ask to watch is something that's good, Yeah. So I remember the whole event in Chile when the miners were stuck in the mine, and I didn't even know about it until the very last day when everybody had been found and there was so much cheer. And I thought, oh, isn't this great that I get to watch this drama at the very end,
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second thing. The third thing is to really spend as little time as possible with any medical people that don't give you hope. My experience in being with my husband, going to these doctor's appointments, is that they always want to talk about the doom and gloom. I hate to tell you this, but your tumor's spread another ½ inch or something.
Yeah.
And honestly, that kind of information, it's not important, it's not relevant, and it's actually harmful because, of course, it instills more fear into you. And so you want to be trying to find anybody that can, one, give you hope, and two, help you realize that whatever is in your body right now, it's just temporary. Because many people have left, cancer has left many bodies, many. And there's many people that have written their stories about it. So those are the kind of things that any doctor that knows about energy and knows about spreading hope would talk to their patients about. But doctors tend to be so, what is itis? They have such what is itis. They want to report the news about your body when really that's, it's not very helpful at all. So, and it's not because there's bad meaning, doctors don't mean to be like this. This is how they're trained. They're trained in drug treatment and they're trained in diagnosis of symptoms. I've, having a doctorate degree myself, I've worked with doctors and I know what their curriculum is for the most part. I don't think there's anything in the doctor curriculum that talks about energy and vibration, that illness is about a misalignment of energy. That's not even in the medical fields right now. They call that alternative therapy. And, basically what that means is that the medical profession hasn't accepted it. And I believe that they're like so far behind in terms of what's out there. But ideas take time to get onto the planet. And it won't be doctors that change it. It's people like you and I that understand energy and understand vibration and are spreading the word about that are really changing things. So the other thing about cancer is that I'll give it from my own experience. If I were to do it again, my husband and I had been wanting to leave Vancouver for quite a while when he got diagnosed with cancer. We wanted to move to a smaller place. And but as soon as he got cancer, we lived 5 minutes from the cancer agency. And so we ended up deciding to stay in Vancouver because we thought that was what was best for us. We didn't know. But now that I know what I know, I would have suggested that we move right away to where we really wanted to go, and that we just live our lives as, moving towards the happiness that we were seeking. And I think that would have been a huge thing to do. We would have eliminated a lot of treatments that did a lot of damage to my husband. We would have eliminated tons of time where people just went on and on and on and on and on about how bad it was and his illness and how sorry they were, and all of those conversations you tend to have that make it worse. And anybody that's had cancer in their family, that feeling of fear and doom it's huge, because there's such a fear of this illness in our culture. So the other thing is, I would recommend that people do things that they absolutely love to do. Be in nature, listen to good music that they want to listen to, hang out with people that they really want to be with. Never do anything unless it's a hell yes coming forth from within. And that can take some time to sort of even get to know what you love and what you really want to do. But it's well worth it's well worth taking the time to really get more in tune with yourself. Another thing, I would learn how to meditate so that you can just calm your mind, release. Most people's minds are so full of chatter, negative chatter, worry and frustration, that one of the things that meditation does is it calms the mind. It stops the thought process for just a little bit. And the other things, I have a course online on my site. It's at JoanieMcMahon.com, and basically it's a course really giving people some tools on how to feel better. So, and teaching them things like being in a state of appreciation it's one of the highest states of being that you can be in. And there's a little game that I play. If I'm ever feeling down and a little bit off, I will play the game, the 10 things I appreciate about you. And I will talk, let's say I want to talk about the mountains, which I love. I will just go on for, 10 things I love about the mountains. And by the 10th thing, I have literally shifted my energy and moved into a better feeling place. So that's one of the things, is these little techniques that you can do. Great. So this state of appreciation is the highest state of being. So when we're appreciating, the sunshine, the sunrise, the beautiful day, whoever we're with, whatever we're doing, we're helping our health. We're keeping healthy. And cancer can't stay in a body that's in a state of constant appreciation. It has to go. It's just, it's like an unfriendly visitor, literally. Yeah. In a body that's full of appreciation. So the other thing is learning some inner skills like journey work that helps you access these old negative memories that are culprits in dis-ease, and they're kind of like hidden culprits that many of us aren't aware of. So what journey work does is it helps you become aware that you have an active old negative memory within that's creating distress in the body. So, my site at, JoanieMcMahon.com/understand law of attraction, there's lots of information about journey work on that site. But it's really a set of simple skills that helps people become more aware of our inner world, really. The other thing is that when we have an understanding of death, that really when we die, we just change channels, so to speak. We move to a different experience. It's literally, and it's a pure positive, energetic experience that we move to. So when my husband died in one fell swoop, the cancer was relieved and he moved into this state of absolute bliss and love. So whether you live or whether you die, both are, they can both be joyous experiences. So when we let go of the idea that death is this terrible thing, which is so rampant in this culture of North America, that somehow we want to hang on to life no matter what. It's an unnatural way to think, because we're all coming and going and, living and dying and moving on to another experience because we're eternal. Mm-hmm. And so if we can let go of the idea that if we die, it's okay. And if we live for, 20 more years, it's okay too. That helps to relax the body. And it moves you into it helps you to release that fear of death, which is so prevalent. It's just so strong. I remember my husband having that fear. It was just, and I remember when he kind of let go of it and just allowed his body to do what it had to do at the end, towards the end. It wasn't repairable, towards the end, and he knew it. And so he just let go, and he just, once he let go, his body released quickly into death, which is really what was needed, because he wasn't healthy. He wasn't feeling good. He was living a life that his body just was breaking down. And there comes a time when you have cancer that you just know that it's probably not going to get better. The person knows. So letting go of this idea that death is this horrible thing with cancer as well. So, I'm just trying to think of, the other thing is doing all the things, eating foods that you really love to eat, doing all those things that make you happy. Because whether you die in a month or 5 years, we want the life you live to be joyful. So, moving into the state of just whatever, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to stop watching the news. I'm going to only watch great things that I love. I'm only going to do things that have a hell yes coming from within. I'm going to spend way more time in nature. I'm going to do anything that I can possibly do to feel good every day. I'm going to let go and not even talk about my cancer. I'm only going to seek help from people that understand about energy and understand about that this is a vibrational universe, and that somehow through our thoughts and emotions and a negative experience that we've attracted this illness, and it can go as quickly as it came. So so those are some of the things about cancer and it's not an easy thing to do. It really isn't. I think now that my thoughts are so firmly knowing about this energetic field that we are, and that illness is just a symptom of misalignment of energy, that I wouldn't ever do the experience that we did together with my husband. It wouldn't be the same. It would be a very different experience. So, so those are some of my thoughts about cancer. Do you have any questions coming from that, Jonathan, or anything to add?
I really like that. That's the first time I've heard it put that way, and I think you really were spot on with the symptoms, not really having a effect if you don't look at the root of the problem. And it's true that people do just get horrified, like they hear the word and they're just totally fear struck. And a friend of mine, he passed when I was younger, and during the chemotherapy, I just remember the stories him telling me of how horrible it was. And I also wish I had the knowledge I knew now. It seems to me that even NIH in Maryland started a alternative energy department, and like you're saying, we are on the just getting into this other way of thinking, even though it's been around for a long time. It's just the mainstream is just starting to look at this. And so it's definitely important that how you feel is everything to it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of cultures, like in North America, cancer is so rampant. There's so much of it because there's so much stress in North America. And I know that there's some countries, for example, smoking is considered to be related to cancer. Most people think that. And so when someone gets lung cancer, generally you think that this person smoked because that's the cause of the cancer. But there's countries where there's massive numbers of people that smoke. I think it's Norway. I'm not quite sure about the country, but and there's very little cancer. And what I've come to believe is that it's not about the substance. It's about our energy. If we're smoking and we're happy and feeling great, that's a very different smoke than if we go and smoke because we're feeling anxious and worried, Yeah. So it's not so much the smoke that's the culprit. It's the energy combined with the smoke. It's the anxiety and the stress, which is why many people smoke. So it's the same if you have a glass of wine. A person just enjoying a glass of wine, that's one kind of person. But a person who's having a glass of wine to take the edge off their frustration or their anger or their worry, that's a very different glass of wine.
Yeah.
It has a different impact on the body, So even those things that we've come to see as bad for the body, and I'm not saying that smoking and lots of smoke and alcohol are great things. I'm saying it's less about the substances and it's more about our vibration. It's all about our energy, so it's everything. And getting to this place where we start to really know within what makes us feel good, what makes us happy, is the key to all wellness for everything. I have not ever been diagnosed with cancer, but I've been diagnosed with a depression that no doctor thought I would ever get out of. And I don't remember one doctor giving me hope about that. They said I would be on antidepressants forever. And I had lower back pain that was so severe that was another thing. Doctors just don't know what to do with lower back pain, and it's rampant. Lots of people have lower back pain. It's a very common symptom. And I don't have either anymore. And the only thing I've done differently is I understand now that being happy is the goal. Being happy is the purpose of life. There's nothing more important than to feel good and to be happy within. Nothing. And once we really realize that we're the only person that can make ourselves happy, the relationship between me and who I really am, which is this wonderful higher being, this adorable, loving, generous, amazing person. We all are. And our goal is to constantly be moving to more of who we are, because there's always more. Becoming more is always possible. And when we realize that that's the purpose of life, that's the goal, then all of these illnesses that seem like they can't be repaired, they go. I haven't had lower back pain in years, ever. And,
That's great.
they even showed me x-rays. See, your back's never going to get better.
Right.
Well, that's a doctor that doesn't know about energy. That's a doctor that doesn't understand the root of illness. They think it's a wearing away of the body. That's the other thing that, there is this belief in our culture that as we grow older, our bodies decline in health. We get arthritis, we get cancer, we get whatever, right? It's a common belief in our culture that as we grow older, we get less and less vibrant in our health. And that is exactly what it is. It's just a belief. It does not have to be at all. Absolutely. We can live happily until our dying breath and be in perfect health, knowing that we're ready for the next experience. And, I have a story. It's well worth, it's not really connected with cancer, but it's connected to the idea that we don't have to decline in health. I have a grandmother. She's transitioned now, but she was, everybody that was in her presence felt loved. Like we all thought we were her favorite, so to speak. She just had this way with people, but I'm sure I was her favorite. But she was, I think, in her late 70s, and she had lived a lot of life, and I think she was ready to move into another experience. She was healthy as can be, and she took about a week to contact all her kids and just have good conversations with them. She took me shopping, and everybody seemed to have had an experience with her before she died. And after a couple of weeks, nobody really knew that this was what she was doing. I don't even know if she was conscious of it. But she went to sit down in her rocking chair one night, and she was reading a book by her favorite author. And she fell asleep, and she just never woke up. And what a peaceful way to die. It was just like she just was, okay, I'm ready. I've lived such a great life. I've said goodbye to everybody I love, and I'm going to move on. And I think that's the kind of life we can all have. That it's calling us to happy, healthy transition. That little Esther Hicks, who is one of the most powerful teachers that I know on the planet. She teaches about law of attraction. Abraham Hicks is their name. She talks about that. She says, she wants to live, happy, healthy, dead. Transition. Because she always talks about there is no death. We just move on to the next and the next. It's all a joyful unfolding into the next experience of whatever will be. So that's the other thing about illness and cancer in particular, is that it can leave your body and you can end up living many more years and die just being happy and healthy because you've taken and done the steps needed to just ensure that your happiness is the most important thing of all. It kind of calls for people to be selfish, and I mean that in the nicest way, to really honor themselves. And when you say no to an event that you used to go to out of obligation, and you now say no to it because it doesn't feel like a hell yes from within, you realize you're on your path to becoming taking care of self, to becoming selfish in a very good sense.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have lost touch with that, honoring themselves. So yeah, so I think I've covered everything that I can think of with cancer.
Okay.
One more thing. I'm certainly not saying don't do any of the treatments that doctors say if it feels like the right thing for you. Like for some people, chemotherapy could be the right treatment for them. But always listen from within. It's not your doctor that knows what's best for you. It's not your husband or your wife or your best friend. It's you. If you're listening from within, there'll always be a message that, yes, go for this. This is good for you. This will help you move to the next stage.
Mm-hmm.
So our bodies are always, always, always trying to get our attention and tell us, move us to this higher place of who we really are.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Joanie. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And viewers, go to JoanieMcMahon.com and opt into her list, and she's got great value there that you'll really appreciate too. Well, thanks, Joanie. You have a great day.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much. I appreciate talking about this topic. I think it's one that many people would like to hear other thoughts about. So thank you.
No problem. And I just wanted to add that I'm not a doctor and I don't treat, cure, diagnose, or prevent any disease or illness. One last note I wanted to add in was that it brought me a lot of relief when I found out that everybody in the world has cancer, and it's either dormant or not dormant. So, a lot of people worry about getting it, and once they realize that everyone has it, it takes some of the stress away. Just like following your joy, doing what makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.